Hey, soldiers, even America's staunchest and oldest allies are now calling for the end of dollar dominance. Yes, this is all happening for a specific reason. We will get into that, and there is something you can do about it. Once we expose the reason, it'll come to you very quickly if it hasn't already. Listen, there's a mad dash away from all things America right now. Socially, politically, economically, countries are deciding that what's going on in this country and has been going on for quite some time is not something that they want to be allied with, aligned with. All right. And go ahead, hit subscribe. Now, the reason why I'm asking you to do that now is because I think I might lose some soldiers on this one. I certainly hope not, but I am going to tell the unvarnished truth as I see it. And you know, it's 2023, and the truth and expressing yourself freely doesn't always coincide with everyone's feelings. So look, as always, I do want you to comment and let me know what you think about what I am going to say today. I like the fact that YouTube gives us, you know, the full duplex. It's a telecom term for two-way communication. The full duplex it's really half duplex, but whatever. We get to communicate with one another. This is not like CNN where they just talk at you. All right. We're having a dialogue. So go ahead and subscribe and become a soldier of finance. Let me know you did so in the comments. I will salute you. Salute to all of the soldiers of finance. And listen, whether you're a soldier yet or not, go ahead and hit the thumbs up button. Let the algorithm know that this is the kind of discussion that you want to see more of here on YouTube. All right, now, I started this out by saying that, you know, our allies are, you know, even now saying this is not where it's at. All right. I'm talking about France. France has come out and said, look, really, we don't want anything to do with World War III. And we would really like to entertain a European superpower. Okay. So when we talk on this channel, we have talked about a multipolar world power setup. Okay, we're coming out of an era where the United States was the sole military superpower and economic superpower and cultural superpower. We've been importing a lot of culture, and now countries are standing up and saying, you know what, this culture they're importing is caustic, is very poisonous, is antithetical to what we are basing our traditions and culture on. Case in point, what we're seeing over in some countries in Africa where they are looking at the United States and how far we've taken certain things. I think you know what I'm talking about. It's no longer enough to just accept people for who they are and have a live and let live attitude. That's no longer enough. Now, this has filtered down to the point where you've got folk who want to expose children to themes that they should not encounter until they're a little older, okay? Childhood should be innocent as possible. There are so many children that have rough childhoods. Why would you want to complicate it even more? Alexander the Great, it is reputed that Alexander the Great was a homosexual. Okay. I'm sure he didn't need Drag Queen Story Hour to teach him that that's what he wanted to do. And somehow he wound up doing it anyway. Okay. So this idea that we need to hypersexualize children is disgusting. And we're over here in this country pushing that notion and daring anyone to speak out and say, let a child be a child. This is what we're doing over here. All right. So culturally, they're looking at us and saying, no, we're not going down that road. Live and let live wasn't enough for them. They decided to take it to a whole new level. So we're gonna, you know, nip it in the bud, as they used to say on the Andy Griffith Show. Another thing, we got a headline here, led by fat activist, New York considering bill to ban weight discrimination. Okay, so this is what we're dealing with. Now, certainly you shouldn't be out there making fun of anybody for the way that they look unless it's John Kerry, the climate czar. You can feel free to make fun of him. This guy actually paid a plastic surgeon to make him look like a Muppet. But other than that, we shouldn't be out here, making fun of folk. But we should be able to have a doctor be able to say, hey, listen, you might want to do this with your weight or that with your weight because of health concerns. That's becoming an issue. Okay, I'm just running through a couple of these things that we are focused on while the rest of the world realigns. All right. So, and don't forget our perpetual fascination with racial division. First of all, from a scientific point of view, Homo sapiens sapien is the only race of man. I said man. We know about, okay, humanity. I'm not going to play the Fetterwoman. I'm not doing that. Sorry. Not sorry. But so these are the kinds of things we're doing, okay? These are the kinds of things that America is concerning itself with. They say you get the leadership you deserve, so maybe that's why Joe Biden is in office. Because in the last 2 years, we have lost so much standing in the world that we may never get back, okay? Especially if we don't start trying to regain it now. And look, Joe Biden has 2 additional years in office, roughly. And even if you invoke the 25th Amendment, then Kamala Harris becomes president. And honestly, I think that would be worse than Joe Biden. And that's saying something. Macron says Europe should reduce dependence on the US dollar and seek strategic autonomy. Macron as in Emmanuel Macron, the president of France. As the United States combats a recent flood of countries de-dollarizing, trading commodities in other currencies, the last thing that was needed was French President Emmanuel Macron amplifying this message. Remember, Emmanuel Macron is president of France. France is our oldest ally, fought with us in the Revolutionary War. Yeah, they came in late in the game, but they came in. Okay, let's just give them their due. Been with us through thick and thin. We did them a solid back in World War II, helped them out of a tough spot during that conflict. And they've been bosom buddies ever since. After spending around 6 hours with Chinese President Xi Jinping as part of a 3-day state visit to China, Macron made extremely clear that France wants nothing to do with World War III, emphasizing that Europe must employ strategic autonomy. That's a quote. Quote, strategic autonomy, unquote. Presumably led by France to become a third superpower, quote, third superpower, unquote. While speaking with reporters aboard the French version of Air Force One, the French president said that the great risk facing Europe right now is that it gets caught up in crises that are not ours, meaning French, the French citizens, which prevents it from building its strategic autonomy. This isn't the first time Macron has suggested reducing dependence on the U.S. In November, the French president called for a single global order while discussing the power interest of Russia and China and the threat of war. We are in a jungle, and we have 2 big elephants trying to become more and more nervous, Macron said. If they become very nervous and start a war, it will be a big problem for the rest of the jungle. You need the cooperation of a lot of other animals, tigers, monkeys, and so on. Interesting choice of animals, considering the players that were not involved. Anyway, Macron said that. China agrees. Macron's concept of strategic autonomy was enthusiastically endorsed by Xi and the Chinese Communist Party, who have been focusing on the notion that the West is in decline as China rises, and that weakening the transatlantic relationship, and that's the relationship between Europe, Western Europe, and the United States, will accelerate the trend toward China ascending and American influence across the board descending. The paradox would be that, overcome with panic, this is Macron talking again, we believe we are just America's followers. The question Europeans need to answer is it in our interest to accelerate a crisis on Taiwan? No. The worst thing would be to think that we Europeans must become followers on this topic and take our cue from the U.S. agenda and the Chinese overreaction. Now, that's significant because in all of these little conflicts that we've been involved in, the Gulf War, Desert Storm, okay, Gulf War, I think it was called Enduring Freedom. Somebody out there correct me if I'm wrong. The campaign in Iraq, okay, all of that, all of this stuff, France has been there, all right, with us as a part of the Allied forces. They're starting to question that. They're saying, we got problems at home. Have you seen the protest in France with what's going on with the pensions over there? That's coming here, by the way. See, France, the franc is not the global reserve currency. So they really can't, use this blank check capability to, keep the mystique going. And when we lose, which sounds very much like this is going to accelerate from here, guys, we are going to face these same types of financial issues, economic issues, like having to say, listen, our public pension system is broke. You're going to have to work longer, or you're just not going to get the benefit when you thought you were. You have to be older, and the benefit will be less than you thought it would be. Just hours after his flight left Guangzhou, I believe that's how you pronounce it. We got some Chinese folk out there who speak Mandarin. Let me know if I pronounce that right. Anyway, after hours after the plane headed back to Paris, China launched large military exercises around the self-ruled island of Taiwan because they just got a signal from Macron that, hey, we might not be with America on this one, okay? So they went ahead, made a statement, and started, military exercises. Those exercises were a response to Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen's 10-day diplomatic tour of Central American countries that included a meeting with Republican U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy while she transited in California. People familiar with Macron's thinking said he was happy Beijing had at least waited until he was out of Chinese airspace before launching the simulated Taiwan encirclement. Look, okay, this is where we're at, okay? They're ditching the dollar, okay? What's wrong with my lighting? We'll get it straight, guys. Don't worry about it. The content is what's important here, not the production value, although I am working on that. Macron suggested that Europe was too dependent on the United States for weapons and energy and must now focus on boosting their own defense industries. But perhaps most notable was his suggestion that Europe needs to reduce its dependence on the extraterritorially. Wait a minute, Macron. Let me digest this. He said, and this is a quote, so I want to get it right, the extraterritoriality. Is that a word, Macron? Anyway, he wants to minimize the influence of the dollar, a line which both Moscow and Beijing have also been emphasizing. So now they got not only just a NATO partner, not only just a G7 member, but one of the leading members of both of those groups, France, basically echoing exactly what they're saying. This is phenomenal. Interesting footnote, as is common in France and many other European countries, the French president's office, known as the Élysée Palace, insisted on checking and proofreading all of the president's quotes to be published in this article as condition of granting the interview. This violates Politico's editorial standards and policies, but we agreed to the terms in order to speak directly with the French president. Politico insisted that it cannot deceive its readers. It would not publish anything the president did not say. Okay? The quotes in this article were all actually said by the president. All right. So, but some parts of the interview in which the president spoke even more frankly about Taiwan and Europe's strategic autonomy were cut out by Macron's office. So it got even more vociferous. It got even more frank. All right. And they just didn't publish those pieces. Guys, look, here's a problem. We got a vacuum of leadership in the country. Like I said, we have an addled president. I don't care if you voted for him. Look, just be an adult at this point and digest the fact that the man has issues. Now, Robert Gates, who's a former defense secretary, he said, and he's done a lot of other things in government. In his book, he said Joe Biden had been wrong about every foreign policy decision in the past 50 years. All right. It is reputed that Barack Obama, the man's boss at one time, said, never underestimate Joe's ability to FS up. Okay? These are people that know the man. If you take yourself into a voting booth in 2024 and vote for this man again, then you're exercising some very low-grade emotional intelligence. All right? It is not about how sweetly someone speaks to you. Yes, the last president, very gruff, bombastic. We didn't start any new wars. I heard somebody the other day talking about, yeah, well, we should charge Trump with war crimes. For what war? All of the wars that were going on were already in progress. Okay, he didn't start any new conflicts. Anyway, Trump's the devil. But when Trump was in office, you ask yourself, how was your economy? How was the state of the union? How was our influence interpreted overseas? Now, you can say that, we weren't well liked, and I would challenge that. Saudi Arabia gave Donald Trump a state parade. What did they just do with Joe Biden? They told him they weren't concerned any longer with pleasing the United States, and they cut oil production. Okay? So, North Korea, they're back at it. They're saying that they're arming up and they're, becoming more belligerent under Biden. What happened when Trump was in office? Yeah, that's right. He walked over into North Korea. That relationship starting to thaw a little. Now it's frozen solid again. All right. Putin didn't go into any territory under Trump. Now, did he? And that's a fact. As far as the economy is concerned, some idiot tried to tell me that Trump's unemployment or employment numbers were worse, and that as when Biden came into office, we saw a rise in employment. And while that is true, I think this person, and I reminded them of incidents that occurred in 2020 when we had a tremendous spike in unemployment. Those jobs came back, and that's why we saw employment go up starting in the beginning stages of the Biden presidency. I'm like, this isn't rocket science, right? It's not brain surgery. Why don't people get this? But look, the United States right now, politically, economically, culturally, is a 747 that is in a nosedive, okay? And it's going to take a Herculean effort to pull up. And we're going to need somebody with brass balls in order to have that happen. And it might be a lady out there with brass balls, and she can do it too. Great. Good for her. Let's find out who she is and get her into this cockpit. Somebody has got to, you know how they say Jesus take the wheel? Yeah, for real, because we're on our way into the ground at about 600 miles per hour. All right. So if you like what's going on in America today, then I guess you can just keep on voting for these same individuals that occupy the levers of power right now. But if you feel as though you want to pull out and pull up and try to recover from this nosedive, if it's even possible, then consider different leadership. All right, guys. So listen, I want you to take a look in the archives. Take a look at a video we just did. More on this, basically. I mean, the situation just keeps getting more and more interesting. But I want you to take a look at how the head of the CIA He knows what's going on. He knows that we're in a nosedive. And he just went over to Saudi Arabia and basically threatened them to get back on the plantation, come back into the fold. Will they do it? Well, watch this report and let me know what you think. Guys, I'll talk to you soon.